I couldn't resist. I need to do something here with my sound for a second here. So today is Halloween, and for those of you who are from somewhere else, maybe you don't do Halloween, but we do Halloween big time in my neighborhood. And I'm waiting to see if I'm coming on here live stream. I live between an elementary school and a middle school, and there are tons of kids because it's flat who will be coming to my house tonight. I have huge, massive amounts of candy. I think I have like 900 pieces of candy because they come in groups of 20s. It's quite awesome. And I always like to dress. I like to dress a little bit to just be a witch. When my mom was alive, she used to come over and we'd have really a great time with the kids. She would dress like a witch too. So I thought, as I'm getting ready for my own today, it would be really great because I had put out ego games, and it's kind of like that. You know, Halloween, you get to put on your alter ego. I'm not saying my alter ego is always a witch, but I have been a witch many, many years for Halloween. In fact, I've got the nose and the wart. I didn't put that on for all of you today, but I'll put it on for the kids tonight because it's kind of fun. Green, the whole bit. Anyway, I want to just check and see that it's working over here, and then I'll be back with you because we're going to do a little discussion of ego games. So, Grace, oh good, I'm glad there you guys are. Nanny, Linda, Sudha, Rama, beautiful. So, and I'm feeling very sacred about this. I think that it's important. You know, we're doing householder awakening. This is what Bhagwan is saying for us. And as a householder, I am very tuned in to the kids in the neighborhood for Halloween. So I felt this is okay. I'm not being sacrilegious in any way. So I hope you guys liked my little games I posted on the front, because I think it's really appropriate when we're looking at, a couple days ago, we looked at the controller. And, you know, the controller, as I shared in that live stream, and you can go back and look in the archives if you didn't get to see it. It was a couple days ago. It says the controller. The controller is basically that aspect of the ego self. Call it the ego self, call it the ego mind, call it the mind, call it whatever you want to call it. But that part that sort of overlays who we are as we're connected fully into the presence of the divine. It's that part that has somehow gotten separated and needs to protect itself, feels it's separate, feels it's disconnected, and so it needs to protect itself in some way. And so that part of the self that is the controller, it's kind of got this false perception about the world. It feels like it has a separate identity, and it feels like that which is outside of itself is somehow doing something to it. And so it needs to manage and control that which is outside itself, which would be spouses, partners, mothers, fathers, kids, bosses, people that work for us, anybody we interact with that happens to push the button that sends us to a place that we don't want to feel. So the controller is the kind of guardian that is keeping us from feeling all those feelings that are really present for many of us, because we've developed these patterns where we somehow believe we're separate. We think that we're not connected to our mother, our father, to our ancestors, to our children, to all life, to the birds, to the animals, to Mother Earth. And, you know, when the shift happens, then that veil of separation lifts. And for some, you know, the veil doesn't totally lift. We've seen and talked to people, and it's evident even when people are doing the Q&A that even people who have had the shift completely, you know, had the permanent shift, depending on our levels where we are, there's still things that cause us to have that sense of separation because all of those charges have not been released. So whether you're awakened or whether you're in an awakened state, you haven't had the full shift, whether you're just, you know, muddling through like most of us have for years and years and years, this controller can still be an active part of our life. And the controller loves to play what in India call them ego games. And we could call them mind games. It's games that are played by the mind to keep us from feeling what wants to be felt. What is. Again, we've done that practice about feeling and experiencing the what is. So what are some of the ego games? And it's been kind of fun because you guys, a couple of people have been emailing me and saying, oh, this is how my controller acts, and a few people put it on the live stream. But I just want to go over a couple of these, and we can just see how some of them might be ways that you have found yourself interacting in the world to feel safe, to feel secure, to get the needs of that part of us that feels separate, call it the self, to keep the self feeling okay about itself. So one of the main things that we do is the game of domination. And that's easy to see when you even just think of the word controller. The controller wants to dominate. The controller wants to be in charge. So, there's so many ways that we can do that we can dominate. And I think I mentioned some of those in the last, that live stream about the controller. We can be the authority on something. We can dominate through the mind and the intellect and be the one the big know-it-all, We can dominate through humor even. Have you been in a space where somebody is constantly deflecting what's actually in the room by making a joke? And it pulls us away from going deeper into what is. And if you're the one who's doing that, you're doing it because you're feeling uncomfortable and you need to somehow break that energy. We can dominate through our physical presence. I don't know about this, but I'm kind of feeling it's something that I've done in my life where I've gotten physically bigger. That would mean get fat, gain mass to internally protect in a way, but also to essentially feel more dominating in the space that I inhabit. And I think it's a very subconscious thing, but I think it's part of the pattern in a very subtle way. We can dominate with our voice, with the tone of our voice, the mother tone. We can dominate with the words we're going to say. I remember my mom used to do things like I'd arrive at her house after traveling, because she lived in Florida and I lived in California. And I'd have my suitcase and I'd get dressed to go somewhere with her. And she'd look at me. I'd come out of the room and she'd go, "You're not going to wear that, are you?" Well, yeah, I'm wearing it. I have it on and I'm planning to go out. But there was just that element of I'm in charge with that one little phrase. We can dominate with a look, the look, the scowl. Some people have permanent scowls from doing that, or maybe that's just from being on the internet. The flip side of that is it's a very different side, and somebody actually emailed me realizing that this is what they do. And you could call it more the passive aggressive, but it's that person who refuses to be dominated. So if you're going to refuse to be dominated, some of the things that you might do, your strategies might be, if somebody's coming at you, you might be somebody who simply just leaves. You leave the room, you leave the situation, you leave the relationship. You're just not willing to engage with any of that energy. So even, people who are very, very averse, is that a right word? Adverse or averse? I don't know, I have to look that one up. But people who just hate conflict are probably people who are coming from that place of refusing to be dominated. And who knows, the roots of a lot of these things, of course, are in our patterns with our families, and even beyond that with our ancestors. If you had somebody in your family who was very harsh and very dominating, as a child, you might easily have learned to just get out of Dodge, get out of here, go find take your toys and play elsewhere. And even if it wasn't a rageaholic, if it was somebody who was always trying to mold you to do a certain thing, there might have been a strategy that you developed of just kind of not being dominated. This is what I'm going to do. So just notice for yourself if that's a part. Passive aggressive is a great one for that. Sort of an underground way of exerting your control by being passively aggressive, where nobody can really poke at you and say you're doing it, but you're definitely doing it. It's sometimes you're the elephant in the living room in that case. Another thing then, and this is a great one. This was kind of one of my personal favorites, and I think Roy would tell you that I still do this. I'm right. I'm right. Taking the stand that you are right, no matter what, even if you're not right. That whatever you say, whatever you believe to be true, you are the one who's right. And of course, the opposite side of that is if you're somebody who's always right, you also have, no doubt, the strategy that makes someone else wrong. If I'm right, it's the mind again. The mind that needs to compare and the mind that needs to judge. When the mind is active like that in a situation, we have to sort of take a side. So, of course, the ego, the self, wants to be right, wants to protect itself. So I'm going to be right, and then to even bolster my rightness, I'm going to make you really, really wrong. So that's a huge strategy for a lot of us. The I'm right, you're wrong. And of course, it's what keeps us in this kind of place of conflict and relationships. It keeps us in conflict internally too, because even after the situation has happened, whether it's an argument with somebody or you've taken drawn a line in the sand, afterwards we chew on how right we are. Haven't you done that? You're just like having this massive conversation in your head about how right you are and how wrong they are, and then you build an argument around it. You create a whole case for it. And I know I used to do. I'd build this case and I'd create a story in my mind. And again, it's just my perception. I'd bring in things that probably didn't even exist. Create the whole case about how right I am, and then feel really, really good about being so right. Just because what I'm doing again is I'm covering up. I'm not dealing with whatever's going on inside. So I'm right, you're wrong. You can be a dominator. You can refuse to dominate. You can be the one who's right all the time. You can be the one who's poking at somebody else saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. See how wrong you are? Just going on and on about it. The other one that is kind of a subtle one, and that is when we actually create kind of an ideology for ourselves. And we live within that sort of philosophical structure. And I think about this for myself as when I became a unity person. And unity is a new thought, a spiritual movement. And there are different churches where people go to that are involved in unity. And it's basically a teaching. It's metaphysical. It's understanding the world from the place of every experience is about the journey of the soul. It's about unfolding into our divinity and claiming that divinity. It's very connected to oneness, but its teachings have a lot of principle involved, a lot of certain thought patterns. The thoughts that we think come, that which I think about comes about. This idea that what's inside the thought forms is going to outpicture, which is, truth at many levels. But I know that when I became really involved in unity and then ultimately became a minister, I created this kind of bubble around what I believed. And everybody who was outside that belief, whether they were other spiritual traditions, people in different religions, I had this kind of construct. It was like me against them. Not that I was fighting, but somehow I had taken on this ideology, and the ideology was so perfect. It was perfect because it was mine. Again, it's all about this idea that when we're suffering, and there was a suffering in there, because those people weren't in it, people that I cared about and loved hadn't gotten it yet, So I was suffering around that, and I perceived that they might be suffering because they hadn't caught on to my great knowing and understanding of the way the world works. And so that philosophy, in a sense, was protecting me and keeping me from suffering more. And again, we can do that in so many different ways where we hold on to a certain kind of belief system, and it's all about how the mind wants to judge. It wants to make this right, this wrong. And again, when we do that, we can even do that in oneness. We can hold that philosophy. We're in oneness, and you're not in oneness. How crazy is that? If it's oneness, it's all of us. It's not a separate thing. So just be noticing for yourself if you've got your own little perception that's become in and of itself a certain ideology that you used to hammer other people over the head with. Even if you don't do it with your words, you may be doing it internally. And that's another way of managing that self and keeping it from feeling vulnerable, keeping it safe in a sense, keeping it in charge, allowing it to feel significant and important. I'm just going to check my time here. I'm getting close to doing an Om. I just want to check in here. Hopefully this is useful for you guys. I have one more little one, which is called the cover-up. So, Sarah, if I am really right, and when I say that I get in trouble, in that case, what am I supposed to do? This is great. I love this. I had a teacher, and he actually was a Tai Chi master. And one of the things he used to do was he would say, give the right away. And what he meant by that was, even if you are right, because sometimes you're in a situation where you got the facts there, and you know that the other person is mistaken. You could be mistaken. I took it wrong. That's kind of a mistake. They took it wrong. The situation was this, and they just, they took it wrong. They missed the mark. It was an error. That's what an error is. Error thinking is you missed the mark. You tried to shoot the arrow, and it went over here instead of hitting the target. So you know that this person missed the mark somehow, and you're right, which makes them wrong. We can give the right away, and it's kind of like if somebody's coming at you and you're holding the force field here. I'm right, they're coming at me. You get in resistance. But if you give the right away, you basically open the door and you let them experience whatever's there for them to experience. It's a very beautiful way to engage with people, to give the right away. I'm going to just let you be right. Because do we really, in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter? That's the thing. It's when we think we're right and we need to hold that stance that we stay in conflict. We stay in conflict, But if we give the right away, just let other people be as right as they can be. They're right, and they can be right as long as they need to be in their rightness. And if their perception changes, great. But in the meantime, we're just allowing what is to be what is. The tricky thing about that is, though, and I remember when I first heard this teaching, if I give the right away and I'm still holding in consciousness, I'm just giving it away because I'm right. Here I am. I'm giving it away. And you're still wrong. That's not what it is. It's giving it away in the sense that we're as right as we can be in the moment. The person's doing the best they can to understand or to have a conversation with us. And that's just where it is. It's like being with the what is. So if you have that situation, I love it you said that, Sarah. If you have that situation, what about the idea that you're willing to just release it, but then to feel what you feel? And what you're probably feeling is this inner need to be, I just need to be significant. In this relationship, there's something about my connection where I feel insignificant. I feel like I don't matter. So let me feel that feeling completely. I feel like I don't feel loved. I don't feel like I don't feel secure somehow because this person's always hammering me. So I need to push back, and that's why I need to be right. I don't know what it is for you, but if you can, when you give the right away, let somebody else do whatever they need to do to be in charge, to be right, then be with what's going on internally for you. Because that need to be right was only protecting something. Again, it was the controller rearing its head and saying, whoa, there's something here I need to protect. There's something inside. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm sure you guys have some other fabulous things on here to talk about, to think about, and what I'll do is maybe we'll do another one of these, and I'll look at some of these and we'll talk about them. So I want to do an Awaken Diksha in a minute. I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to do one more Q&A tomorrow, and maybe what I'll do is I'll Q&A with this tomorrow. It's going to be 6 o'clock East Coast time, 3 o'clock California time. And then I'm traveling. I'm going to Southern California to do a live Om with Eric, and we're doing a Oneness Awakening, Shift into Awakening in Hemet, California. And I'm speaking there on Sunday and doing a workshop. And then I'll be back. And I'm thinking next week I'm getting a lot of questions about my phone. A lot of questions about doing... I'm sorry, I got distracted. Hi, Jill. My friend just texted me. I'm getting a lot of questions about connecting with the divine and prayer process. So what I'm thinking about next week is maybe we'll focus a bit more on that and connecting with our divine. I'll do a process with you on that, and then I can post it up on the archives. And I would love, I'm putting a request out there, if there's somebody out there who is, that I could connect with on Skype or even on the phone, who could walk me through YouTube, kind of putting stuff on YouTube, I would really help. I'd really love that. I can't do it today and tomorrow, but maybe next week. So if you're somebody who just knows how to do that really easily, and if you would send me an email, patriciakeel@gmail.com, and maybe we could connect next week, because I've talked to Doug G about the idea of posting some of these archives that have teachings on them and some Q&A up on YouTube. And so we get it even out to more people who don't know about oneness, but I'm not, it's like major seva for me trying to learn all this stuff. So anyway, now we're going to do an Awaken Diksha, and I am going to invite all of you who are awakened and who would like to participate in the Awaken Diksha to bring your intention. And I'm going to take off this hat. My hair is definitely hag hair today because I'm going to be the witch for the day. So there it is. I love it. We're going to do an intention for our Awaken Diksha today. And that intention, as always, is for the awakening of each one of you who are listening, those of you who are listening live, those of you who are catching this on the archive, and the awakening of humanity. If you're already awakened, it's to raise those states higher and higher so that you move out of conflict, that your controller no longer has to be activated in every situation, and that you really can feel your oneness and the deep sense of connection with all those in your life, with all life, and with our Mother Earth. So I'm going to turn off my sound. I'm going to put some music on, and we're going to do an Awaken Diksha. Then I'll turn off the video and we'll come back.
तेरे बाने सर्वदा नानक नाम चरदी खला तेरे बाने Charity Kala